Hello and happy Monday evening.
Happy Monday evening.
We're going to talk about Trump, aren't we?
Yes. Well, it was interesting because I was thinking this morning about how we've had sort of 18 months of agonizing about the Iowa caucus and, this county in Florida and, all these minutiae. And, it occurs to me that it must sometimes seem to, normal people slightly demented, but actually the reason it is so has been so important and is now even more important is that the result of that very strange, very long, circuitous contest is now that Donald Trump is going to be very shortly the most powerful man in the world again. And so suddenly, with a rush, all sorts of things are happening.
Yeah, it's like the Hemingway line, isn't it, about bankruptcy? It happens very slowly,
gradually,
but
then suddenly, I totally understand why there's all these autopsies about why the Democrats didn't win. But to be honest, I don't care at the moment. What I care about is what happens now.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, we were not, inspired by Ed Davey saying to Starmer last week, you've got to Trump-proof the UK.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a word that's being used in the US as well by various state governors. That now there's this sort of interim period between Trump having won the Senate, and it looks like he's about to win the House, Congress. States, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, the governors all saying, we're not going to participate in your schemes. We are going to take measures. And so already, even before he's president, there's a kind of atmosphere of constitutional tension, and they want to kind of Trump-proof their states. But whether they can or not is a big thing. Meanwhile, more close to home, what does the UK do? And Starmer today for Armistice Day, has been in Paris.
Extraordinary scenes.
Incredible scenes. Very moving and extraordinary. To see them both in that kind of armoured car. Amazing.
Going down the Champs-Élysées.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the most extraordinary thing for me, just apropos nothing, was the rendition of God Save the King by the French Army Choir.
Amazing.
It is, if you haven't heard it, folks,
watch it.
Go and YouTube it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is it's so moving.
It's very moving. And, Trump himself has often commented that no one does these things better than the French.
That's right.
And it's absolutely true.
That's right.
But behind all that grandeur and splendor and, institutional and ritual magnificence, there lurks a lot of very, very pointed and clear and present questions, don't there? I mean,
well, let's go through some of the questions.
So should we talk about Ukraine in the second half?
So Ukraine is a very particular, specific challenge,
we can kind of
isn't it?
put that on the second half.
But the questions for the UK really are about what is our relationship with Donald Trump, and how can you manage him? How do you set out to manage him, or do you set out to be a voice aside from him? An example of another pathway. Now, there's various. We've got our relationship with tariffs. He's going to put tariffs.
Tariffs is obviously.
Trade.
I mean, the first sort of issue for us is tariffs, and it's an interesting thing because Trump famously has very few beliefs that could be described as ideological. He has instincts, but actually his belief in tariffs, mysteriously to me, because as far as I can see, they're inflationary and wreck economies, but is pretty close to ideological, and he's made it clear in the first few days that he means business. He's proposing 10 to 20% tariffs on most nations and 60% tariffs on China. And
let's just explain, because what you just said there about them being inflationary economy wreckers is absolutely clear, isn't it? Because it just makes everything more expensive, and it denudes competition in your domestic market.
So, for example, if he does go ahead with a 60% tariff on Chinese goods into the US, that's great news for Elon Musk, because electric vehicles are a massive import from China.
Yeah.
And it will help Tesla, hugely. Now that's a case study.
I mean, Elon Musk's personal wealth the day after the election went up 26 billion pounds, which is dollars. So, which is about the same amount as Rachel Reeves has just raised by putting 2% on national insurance.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
That in a wanna. And there's more where that came from.
There's a lot of noise around Whitehall and Westminster at the moment that because of Brexit, which Trump loved, he'll be nice to the UK. And there was a very good piece by Lord Kim Darroch, who was ambassador to America and had to come back because
in the Observer, right?
In the Observer. And Darroch, who's a wise fellow, said, look, there will be trade-offs for sure, but he means it.
And if there's a slight sense of deja vu about all of this, it's because we're going into the realms now of a free trade agreement conversation to limit or to negate any tariffs.
Yeah.
And that will then take us back into conversations around chlorinated chicken.
100%.
The death of agriculture in this country.
Yeah.
Because we won't be able to compete. And this is what Donald Trump wants, is he wants the US economy to march over other economies.
Of course. I mean, that's, America first is not just a slogan. It really is what he thinks. And we're outside the EU. Our trade relationship with the US is the single largest that we have. It's worth more than $300 billion a year. Fish, petroleum, mining, cars, whiskey, pharmaceuticals. True services are the biggest single category, and they may escape most of the tariffs. But there's a lot of money at stake in this. One estimate was that if he puts a 20% tariff on all UK imports, it means a 22 billion quid hit to the UK economy.
Right.
Okay. Which
again, the same number
massive.
That we've just had to raise.
And as we keep saying week after week, where's the growth, Keir? How it's being sliced off, salami sliced, or more than salami sliced, all over the place.
Well, I just read today, and this isn't a criticism of Labour, because they're in the same invidious boat everybody else is in.
As every other country,
But I read today Rachel Reeves is going to make the case for free trade. She might as well make the case that the moon is made of cheese. Well, it doesn't make any difference.
Rather shell-shocked, on the morning after the election, she happened to be appearing before the Treasury Select Committee. And I have to say, looking rather way-faced, she said the UK will not be a passive actor in the formulation of the new rules. And this, I love this, she would make strong representations to the new administration. That'll do the trick.
Well, I mean, honestly.
What could you, I guess what else could she say?
Listen, I mean, again, no insult intended. Donald Trump doesn't even know who Rachel Reeves is.
They really, really don't care. I mean, there is this. It is. I mean, there. It's pathetic, the things people are clinging to. So he has an emotional attachment to Brexit, and he was very angry with Theresa May for, in his view, not going the full Monty. And he has said publicly, I want them to do it properly. And so, that we're sort of descending to the realms of, does he like Brexit more than he has contempt for Keir Starmer? It's not a great
because
thing.
Again, to underline another challenge, that contempt for Labour and Starmer is real. It is real,
yeah.
There's no two ways about that.
And if he ever starts to soften in it, Elon Musk, who is almost the de facto vice president at the moment.
It is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll make sure that he continues to hate Starmer, because Musk's loathing of Starmer, which goes back to the August riots, is very, very deep.
The only silver lining on the bizarre relationship Musk has now bought himself into is that they are both such odd personalities that I just can't see that relationship lasting.
I mean, it's in Trump's nature, and I mean, I think season 2 will be very different to season 1.
Well, talking about season 2, my metaphor for it was, I watched the brilliant Wolf Hall last night. And Damian Lewis, brilliant as Henry VIII, and Mark Rylance, brilliant as Thomas Cromwell.
Right.
Now, we know how Cromwell ended up.
Yes.
But I did think Musk is not Cromwell in that relationship. J.D. Vance is Cromwell in that relationship.
He
A
is,
pliable,
that's right.
malleable shapeshifter who will try to
I'm
to
sure
make it
that
work.
J.D. Vance will still be standing.
Yeah.
I mean, not just he'll be in office, because of course he will.
Musk is Thomas More in that. And his head will roll sooner than later.
Musk is far too mercurial and crazy himself. And also, he's too goddamn famous.
Yeah.
And Trump will start to get furious with him having rockets and all the things that he likes.
Elon.
But at the moment,
too many rockets.
He's practically in love with Elon, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to, not to preempt part two, but you do have to feel sorry for Zelensky, don't you?
Yeah.
His first call from Trump, probably one of the calls he's dreaded, President-elect Trump. And, the chef's kiss is that who else is on the call but Elon Musk? I mean,
honestly,
the guy's been
worse.
at war for more than nearly 3 years, right? And he's got Trump and Elon Musk, two maniacs on the end of the phone. Really bad. So there's the whole question of whether British trade, and it is a real big issue, and it will be a real big issue for the whole world. And the China piece could lead to a trade war, which will have a massive impact on every country. This is big politics.
And the other thing, Matt, that's going to have an effect well beyond Trump's presidency is his attitude towards climate.
Well, has anyone noticed? I mean, I know some people have noticed, but COP is going on at the moment.
I know.
And I mean, fair play to Starmer for going, but almost no one else is.
Yeah.
Biden's not going. I think Macron's not going. I know Baku is, Azerbaijan's a bit out of the way, but they have planes, these people.
Yeah,
most of them.
Well, they managed to take them to Davos every
They
week,
don't. Yeah, exactly. And they're nice holidays.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, the fact that even before Trump is in power, they've kind of thrown the towel in on COP.
So is this the fact that let's give Labour some credit now and a route to some more credit if they go our way? Is the fact that Starmer is at COP? Is the fact that Ed Milliband is on a charge about the climate crisis? Is this an opportunity, do you think, for Labour to find some real sense of purpose as a national mission?
Of course, it would be great to think that that's true.
Yeah.
My worry is that, Starmer will make the right noises at Baku, and good on it. And, fair play. I mean, respect is due. But that when he gets back, and this is, again, not entirely his fault, apropos of Trump, the problems he's now facing are so massively great in terms of growth that the green element of Labour's promise will just get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know what you think. I mean, I suspect I know the answer, but, I don't know, which is that this would be a great moment for the long longed for Labour pivot, which is to say, look, we're now facing an openly and gleefully protectionist US president, right? But circumstances have changed. We need to change our relationship with the EU.
Yeah. It won't surprise you to know that I agree wholeheartedly.
I'm not usually surprised, but here's part two, which is I don't think it's going to happen.
No, but there are things that have been put back on the table. Again, youth mobility. And what's interesting is that it's not just, again, it's like the European Union isn't known for its persistence in trying to get Britain to come along. And, it's normally like, all right, well, screw you, But they have repeatedly suggested through all sorts of circuitous routes that, come on, there are deals to be done here. Now is the time. Youth mobility being one route back into some meaningful partnership. Now, Starmer has ruled it out categorically.
Absolutely.
In this incredibly frustrating manner of his. He has been quite as dogmatic as any of them of his Tory predecessors and saying, no, that's not happening. Now, so I was speaking to somebody who spent an awful lot of time working with Labour today at a very high level, working with Keir Starmer today for the last few years, who said the language isn't right. They know the language isn't right. But he made the point, he said, but the language that you use, meaning me, outside of government, it's very easy to be as bold as you are sitting behind a podcast mic when the government challenges are much more nuanced. And I said, well, that may be true, but if we've got a deep problem of populism and disaffection amongst people and a lack of national ambition, you can't just play this game of steady as she goes and we'll work it out and leave it to us. And this technocratic manner of his doesn't just not do it. It actually plays against him. And it will accelerate his demise if he can't excite people into thinking there's another way.
I also think that the way to break the crust or to break the impasse over Brexit was always to find some development that was sufficiently urgent and in your face.
Right.
And I think this, it has the potential to be it. Now, whether Starmer and co have the wit to start now to say, look, guys, the world's economic framework is about to change radically. Okay, if we want to grow in the way just to stand still, not even to improve, we need to have access at minimum to the single market.
Yeah.
Also, and this isn't to preempt part two, but you never know with Trump. I mean, one of Trump's favorite mantras is predictable unpredictability, right? That he likes people not to know what he's thinking. So on NATO, it's quite possible he will stay in, but twist arms for more money. Okay, but it's also possible that he will pull out. I mean, I was looking last night at there's a great book on Trump called The Divider by Susan Glasser and Peter Baker, and early in his tenure of his first term, one of his poor officials explained to him what Article 5 of NATO means, i.e., if one member of NATO is attacked, all are attacked, right? And Trump hadn't heard this before ever.
Really?
Yeah, he was absolutely...
I mean, that's the only thing anyone knows about NATO.
Right.
That's the whole bloody point.
Well, he didn't know. So he apparently said, I'm just quoting the book, he said, you mean if Russia attacked Lithuania, we would go to war with Russia? That's crazy, right? Well, that is exactly what NATO is for. But in that moment, the penny or the nickel dropped.
Oh my God!
And he did nearly pull out. We know from multiple sources, including John Bolton's diaries, that he nearly did pull out. So we cannot assume that between 2025 and 2029, America will be part of NATO. It might remain part of NATO, but not do very much, which is all a very, very long-winded way of saying Britain needs to get in bed with EU on defence in a way that has never been seen before.
Correct.
Ever.
Correct. And this, you'll know the answer to this probably, but you know who coined the phrase "America first"?
Well, it goes back to. Is it pre-Lindbergh? I mean,
it goes to Woodrow Wilson.
It's Woodrow Wilson
in 1916,
right?
Arguing against America's intervention in the First World War.
Right.
So this isn't just if people think they're thinking this is singular to Trump. It absolutely isn't. It's an absolute. It's almost a foundational vein of American democracy is that America comes first.
I mean,
exclusively.
Washington's farewell address onwards. There is an argument that with Trump's return to office, that you can look at the period of from Pearl Harbor through to the withdrawal of from Afghanistan, and now this as a sort of aberrational period. And actually. America is now resetting and going back to its isolationist position. I'm not sure that it will be very grateful of the consequences because the world now is so interdependent economically.
Yeah.
That actually being isolationist in terms of security and defense is a fool's errand if you want to remain an economic superpower, which he most certainly does.
Well, look, let's just take a very quick break, but then let's come back to the one guy who is at the sharpest of sharp
Certainly
ends
is, yeah.
on that conversation. Okay, see you in a couple of minutes. So you're Vlodymyr Zelensky. You're sat in your office in Kyiv watching CNN or Fox News or whatever's on, and your heart rate must be escalating to the rate of a gallop by the time you see the polls, because it's the worst possible news it could be for Ukraine.
Well, I mean, America has been by far the biggest donor of aid in kind or in money to Ukraine since Putin's invasion. 75 billion euros so far. EU institutions have given 19 billion euros, Germany 15 billion euros, UK 13 billion euros, right? Lots of money. And it's perfectly clear that Trump does not intend to spend much more. Now already, and again, the speed, one thing I'm really struck by is, and it is a contrast to 2016, 2017, is that the speed with which Trump is coming out the traps is amazing. So, for example, on Saturday, he posted on Truth Social that he wouldn't be appointing Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo to jobs in his administration. It was a perfectly civil post, very unusually civil for Trump. But what was it saying? What it was saying was both of those people, I mean, Nikki Haley had stood against him in the primary, the Republican primary. Mike Pompeo had been his Secretary of State in the first administration. What they both have in common is that they are pro-Ukraine.
Right.
So what he was really signaling there was, whatever their merits, whatever their experience, I don't care. Yeah. They're not coming back. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Brian Lanza, who's one of his strategists, says to the BBC that the president-elect will press Ukraine for a, quote, realistic vision of peace. And then the real killer, and he said, Lanza says, Crimea is gone.
Yeah. Now, so to caveat that, the administration to be has said, well, Lanza doesn't speak for us.
Of course, yeah.
So there's a bit of distance. However, this guy does know Trump's thinking inside out.
That's the point.
And there is, I think, so I read that and I thought, okay, well, let's work forwards a little bit and say, well, if Crimea is gone, does that mean that the Donbass and...
Well, that's the question.
Is that gone too?
Yeah.
You know, in which case, are we walking into a future where Putin can just close down where they are now and claim that as a victory, which it absolutely would be?
I mean, typically of Trump, it's opaque. But one thing I think that needs to be really underlined, and it's important for the future too, is that millennial Gen X MAGA, the J.D. Vances, the Vivek Ramaswamys, Tucker Carlson's, Donald Jr., are all rampagingly hostile to the Ukraine war, to the point that Tucker Carlson, of course, as we know, went to bloody Moscow and interviewed Putin, right?
Do you know, Matt, let me just pause for a second there, because I was thinking about, you know, Trump's so personality driven, isn't he? Like, he loves hard men and all this. Yes. And Trump's people, certainly, and Trump probably, are choosing to give their loyalty and their admiration to the bully mafia boss sitting in the Kremlin, and not the guy who has been the underdog hard case, who has resisted heroically. It's so unfair.
When Putin invaded Ukraine, everyone wore lots of blue and yellow and did things on Instagram. And, the West did step up to the plate, and NATO, united and made sure that there was, within limits, there was plenty of help for Ukraine. But it was framed in a very familiar way, which is this is a battle between autocracy and liberal values. It's a defense of state sovereignty against invaders. It's about democracy and national self-determination, all that good stuff. And also, we don't want to set a precedent. If Putin wins, what about Taiwan? What about Hong Kong? All the stuff that we've been writing for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Trump land, they don't give a shit about any of this.
That's right.
Right? Not at all. And so, Don Jr., who is now absolutely central to the court. He was at one point the bullied kid, but he's now very much, things change as we know, but he's very much in the inner sanctum with his father. He shared a post on Sunday that said Zelensky was, quote, 38 days away from losing his allowance.
I know.
There's a scorn amongst
the patronising nature
the younger Trump gang. Just think that this is silly. They think it's silly. They think it's silly that America is wasting money, in their view, on a local battle between two tribal chieftains, neither of whom they have any particular interest in. And as you say, if they're forced to choose, they'll choose the big bad wolf, Putin, over the sort of plucky Churchillian Zelensky.
And the echo again, to put a historical picture on it. You think about back to the Munich Agreement. You think about how you look at that. You look at that famous picture of Chamberlain, Hitler, Mussolini, and there's the Italian foreign minister stood alongside him as well, and they're all there. And Chamberlain's got that piece of paper in his hand, and the Americans aren't there. They're not there because they're not interested.
No, exactly.
And Sudetenland given away to Germany. A little bit to Poland,
Absolutely.
Which people always forget. But the consequences for the next 10 years, absolutely cataclysmic.
And this time round, they're not just absent. They're going, go Putin. They're totally transactional.
Yeah.
They want to be on the side of the strongman. Now, the only possible ray of light I can see in any of this, and it's a pretty desperate straw-clutching exercise, is that Trump won't want anything where he can be perceived to be the loser or have been, conned by Putin.
Hoodwinked.
He can't be Putin's
bitch.
Puppet or bitch, exactly.
Yeah.
So he has to frame this as, it's disgusting to even mention it, but I bet you that he thinks he can get a Nobel Peace Prize out of this.
Yeah, no, he will.
What he will be thinking is that he can. Well, Kissinger got one,
Well, also, I've just remembered, as you rightly allude to, his first big complaint was that Obama got a Nobel Prize, didn't do anything. Yeah, look at me, I've solved the problems in the whole world.
Ended wars.
Nothing for me. Never get the credit.
So what? The problem with all of this is that. It's a good moment for Trump to be advancing the "there must be a deal" narrative, because Zelensky is in trouble. Things are not going well for the Ukrainians, and Putin has got 10,000 North Koreans who suddenly arrived. It's very strange. And also, I'm afraid the West is dragging its feet on getting some of the kit to the front.
Why is that? Why aren't we giving them these Storm Shadow missiles that they need?
I just think it's not we always sell Ukraine out.
Yeah.
In 1994, in the Budapest Memorandum, US, Britain and Russia pledged to Ukraine, you give up your nuclear weapons to the former Soviets, to Russia, and we will guarantee your security.
That's right. It was almost like a NATO membership.
And we sold them out again in 2014 when he invaded Crimea, and we sold them out again when they asked for NATO membership. Yeah. And I'm afraid, I wish it were not so, but I think we will sell them out again. And I think that what will happen, and this is, again, not a happy reflection, because I think that there'll have to be some sort of DMZ, some demilitarized zone. And that will have to have troops. It'll have to have boots on the ground. And you can bet your bottom dollar that none of those troops will be American. So, one of my subsidiary worries in all of this, but it's a real worry, is that, British troops will end up
policing
what will effectively be a war of attrition. Yeah. Because what will happen is that whatever Zelensky, let's say there is a big Camp David. I find it hard to envisage, but let's say there is a big Camp David peace deal between Zelensky and Putin, and they embrace and blah, blah, blah. But there'll still be some form of civil war going on indefinitely. Yeah. And the idea of, even if it's Brits wearing blue UN berets forever is not appealing.
No, none of it's appealing.
But that again, to sort of, as they say in corporate world, circle back. That's why all this mattered. That's why, Trump going on about sharks and batteries and the madness of Madison Square Garden and Biden not stepping down soon enough and all the things that we've been following all these weeks. This is why it matters. Yeah. None of it really matters intrinsically.
No.
But this is why it matters, because people are going to die, and basic principles of the international order are going to be vandalized because of the fact that Trump won.
Yeah. All right.
But I think, this is the way to look at it, and it's not great, but it's the best one can do, is this is the biggest story of the decade by far, right? And it's going to change everything, and we're going to be dealing with this all the time. So, what we're saying now is a preliminary response to something that happened less than a week ago.
Yeah.
He's not in power yet. Ukraine hasn't been sold down the river yet. We're talking here about probabilities.
Yeah.
But no one should be in any doubt of the stakes.
Well, that's to me, that's because I'm quite, I'm by nature, I'm quite confrontational. I'm up for a fight. Right?
Yes.
And I've never been more up for a fight than I am now. I'm just so glad that it's been cracked open now.
We've talked about, and I think we'll talk about it more, about the clarity that this has given.
Yeah.
The people in this whole sort of swamp of discussion and argument that make me homicidal are those that say it'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Or he'll go to the golf course, or no. This is a very, very dangerous man, surrounded by arguably even more dangerous men, is about to take control again of the White House.
Yeah.
And if you think that's okay, I have nothing to say to you.
But the second worst group are those that just say, yeah, but it doesn't matter that they've voted. It doesn't matter what Americans do. That Trump is still evil, and because I can put him in the box marked evil, he doesn't count. The world is still a good place. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, maybe, but the point is that we've reached an impasse now where we, and I'm talking about people who are see themselves as liberal Democrats, progressives. Although, as I said the other day, I hate that word now. But
we need to find readers, users.
Tell us who are we?
what should words send in? What should we call ourselves? What is it? The resistance? I don't know.
The fact that sticks in my head more than anything that I've read in the last week is I sent it to you, I think, a paragraph in the FT, and it said that there was a survey done in the States, and it said that if you're a Democrat, 60% of Democrats will instantly have a negative opinion of a Republican voter.
Yes.
Versus 40% of Republicans instantly having a negative opinion of a Democrat voter. Right. So there is a huge kind of assumed moral high ground amongst people like us. And then I heard Bill Maher on. And he said he was having this really fantastic debate with this woman.
Good, wasn't it?
And she was saying, well, you can't just call Trump a Nazi. And Bill Maher said, well, you kind of can, but the point is that people who vote for him aren't Nazis. And that's where we've got to move the fight, I think, in just sort of, obviously we label Trump this, that, and the other in the New European. And he is.
And he is. Yeah.
But we've got to find our common ground now and understand why people who aren't Nazis, who aren't hard case right-wing lunatics, would, for instance, have sympathy with Nigel Farage in this country. Why is that the case? That popular?
Why was it that, was it the latest count is 74 million Americans, right? Now, some of them will be hardcore MAGA. Some of them will be, even smaller group will be really hardcore white supremacist. But most of them will just be ordinary Americans. Now, why were they willing to look past the fact that this guy was a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, twice impeached, and so on, in order to vote for him? And it is not good enough for Democrats to say, but we're great, and if it wasn't for the economy, and if it wasn't for the wave of actions against incumbents, we'd have been fine. No, something really big has happened here, and it should. I mean, like you, it's an odd word to use, exhilaration, but it means one has to go absolutely back to first principles, which is, how the hell did this happen, and how can we stop it being replicated in other countries? Because the seeds of it being replicated are there.
Yeah, for sure.
I just noticed that there was a poll, Westminster intention poll in Wales, for some reason, in which the Reformers overtaken the Tories.
Yeah, amazing. The thing that has been, I've been feeling guilty about, is one of the things that we did for years, frankly, the New European, which was this line about they were lied to. That was the line over Brexit. They were lied to, right? And look at the bus and all of this stuff. And that is still true. They were lied to, but I no longer believe that's why most people voted for Brexit. I don't think they were kidded. I think they were angry, and rightfully angry.
And they were waiting for an opportunity, and they wanted whatever form it took.
They were venting about the failures of Westminster.
Yes.
Right? And frankly, you could have put anything in front of them and they would have vented that way.
It was unfortunate that it was
a
our
big
membership of
thing.
But it could have been anything.
But I don't blame people for being angry and disaffected and wanting to vent. And we've got to fix the things that they were angry about, and to stop calling them they, because it's we.
It's us.
It's all
us.
of us.
It's such an important point you just made, which is the word polarization, I think, disguises a fundamental truth, which is there is them. It's not them and us, right? I mean, one of my favorite statistics is that after Bobby Kennedy Sr., the good one, not the crazy junior one, died, or was assassinated in 1968, there's been a lot of research done on this. A huge chunk of his supporters went over to George Wallace,
who was
the populist, racist segregationist, right?
Case,
Now, explain. I can't, actually. I don't have that toolkit. I don't have the software ready, to explain. But what it shows is that people, in the same way that lots of people went from Bernie Sanders and leapt over Hillary Clinton in 2016 to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
There's something about these populist leaders on both sides that speaks to voters in a way that mainstream politicians aren't.
Listen, if we both are lucky enough to live in one of the great metropolises of this country,
in the planet,
and we both live in comfortable lifestyles, But if I lived in a place that was down at heel, there was full of litter in the streets, my house was getting broken into every 6 months, I felt nervous and scared for my kids every time they stepped out the door because of crime and knife crime. And the whole of society felt like it had turned to shit since I was a kid. I would want a radical answer, and I wouldn't want somebody just saying, well, if you just carry on and we'll tweak things.
I've got an opportunity economy. How's that?
Yeah. I mean, that's not that doesn't mean jack shit to people.
But then you've got this flame-haired maniac who goes on about invasion and siege and pet-eating Haitians, and of course, it's lies and it's racism and it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
But it is effective.
Yeah. So what can we learn from that?
That step one, as in all 12-step things, is accepting you have a problem, right? And in the free world, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And we're 9 years in. I think we're sort of kind of maybe just about really all realizing that.
And mate, I've got a new business model. It's called Progressives Anonymous. and we can all come in and sit round in a
circle. My name's
circle.
Matt, and I'm a progressive. Just for today.
Hey, listen, talking of which, we could have the first Progressives Anonymous meeting at the Phoenix on November the 25th in Cavendish Square.
Yeah.
If you're a progressive and you've got a problem and you want to embark on our 12-step program to salvation.
Reach out for help.
Reach out. The tickets are still available. The link is in the show notes.
And you can come and you can, if you want to share, that's fine. Yeah. And if you don't want to share, that's also fine.
It's an evening with the two Matts. It'll be a lot of fun. Come along and
come along
and shake our hands, and we'd love to meet you. Send in any questions, any observations, any feedback. We've had a huge mailbag since Trump election. A lot of angry people writing in. Some of them angry with us actually for taking a kind of round view of him. But we're.
I didn't vote for him.
Well, we're just trying to work it all out the same as everybody else. But write in anyway to 2matts@tnepublishing.com. That's the number 2 MATTS at tnepublishing.com. Do subscribe to the New European. We are doing God's own work, and
you really have no excuse not to. I'm sorry to be. I mean. You just should.
Yeah, it's £1 a week, folks.
And, and you're helping. Look, we're on a comeback path now, right?
Now is the time to put your money where your heart is. Do it.
Do you mean it or don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Go to theneweuropean.co.uk/2Matts. That's the number 2 MATTS. And actually, I think if you do it now, you'll get 12 hilarious Christmas cards.
Because the holidays are coming up.
Because it's the holiday season.
It's the holidays.
Folks. Yeah, great.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Thanks as ever to our producers at Rethink Audio, led by Matt Hill. And until...
We'll see you on Friday.
Have a great week.
Have a great week.